here again with the Duke. Hey, we're looking fantasy football 2020 again. Hey, today we're going to talk a little bit about quarterbacks. So instead of talking about the normal quarterbacks that we always hear about, let's dive in a little bit on some of these late round, possibly undrafted quarterbacks and see if there's somebody there that we think that we can bring, that's going to be fantasy relevant this season. The person I'm thinking of right here to look into today is Baker Mayfield with the Cleveland Browns. So let's dig into Baker a little bit and let's see what we found from last season, his current stats, and where he possibly should be going in drafts this year. Alright guys, hey, we're going to start out with Baker Mayfield. Let's start out with the bad, alright? Let's just get this off the board. Last year he finished quarterback number 20. It really was not a good season for Baker Mayfield at all. It was definitely a regression from even his rookie year. And, there really wasn't any positives out of that offense other than Nick Chubb and Jarvis Landry. The biggest thing that hurt him last year is that 22 touchdown to 21 interception ratio. So he definitely needs to take care of the ball a lot more this season. And, his completion ratings was, 59%, which is pretty low. Most quarterbacks, we'd like to see them around that 65% area, if not into the 70s. So, last year, Baker actually had a really slow start. They were having trouble moving the ball down the field. He didn't have that connection with his receivers. It felt like he really looked uncomfortable, and I think, it looked like that Cleveland offensive line was going to do pretty well, and then they ended up just not panning out that well as a strong offensive line by the end of the season. So, it kind of took after that Week 7 bye. Baker kind of came in, and he ended up playing pretty decent by the second half of the season. The Freddie Kitchens, hey, it was an experiment. They came in, they tried that the season before, they kind of lit it up towards the end of the year, so they thought about keeping Freddie Kitchens for a one-year deal to see if that would translate into another season. It didn't work. He's gone. Alright, so now we've got Stefanski there, alright? But hey, let's look at OBJ, alright? So Odell Beckham Jr. was a little bit, he was banged up last season, and he still put up a pretty good stat line other than touchdowns. So, and that's a first year. We always know that quarterbacks and wide receivers on their first year together, they usually don't do too well. It's usually the second season that you see them come together. And, so we're looking positive, thinking that him and Odell Beckham should connect more for touchdowns this next year. But that first year with Odell Beckham Jr., as far as touchdowns are concerned, just weren't a highlight for Baker Mayfield. And it really just didn't take off like I think people thought it would quickly. But hey, the outside pressure from the Browns also, there was a lot of hype. There was a lot of, the way they traded up in the draft and released all these people, and then they got all these first and second round draft picks for the years. There was a lot of pressure on the Browns to just come out and dominate and become playoff relevant and go to the Super Bowl. And, I think a lot of that pressure kind of just backfired on that team last year, especially, if you were to start out 0-2 and people are talking Super Bowl and the Browns. I mean, that's just not a good way to start. So this year, there's not really any talk about the Browns. Nobody's hyping them up. Nobody's really discussing them. And, they should be able to go into this season with a little less off their shoulders. And I think that'll actually help Baker Mayfield in his second season. But, all right, so let's look at Baker Mayfield in the good. All right, we already looked at the bad. We know the bad about Baker Mayfield. But he obviously has a clear connection with Jarvis Landry. There's no denying that. So that's definitely a positive going into this year. The addition of Austin Hooper should also help. I mean, he's a good blocking tight end, so that should help with the run game as well as pass block when he's told to. But, that's just another athletic player. In Njoku, I think they were hoping to get more out of him, but he just wasn't ready yet in the league. So now they bring in a little more veteran who can fill that role and definitely give Baker Mayfield a safe target to throw to out of the tight end position. And then, like we were just talking about earlier, the second year with Odell Beckham Jr., we definitely see that going up this season. Junior finished, I believe he finished over 1,000 yards last year, so it definitely wasn't the yardage problem. He was a little banged up, and they didn't have that red zone and end zone connection, which we definitely see going up in their second season together. So definitely watch out for that Odell Beckham Jr. and Baker Mayfield connection going up this year, and both these players benefiting it in fantasy. All right, so he's also got two great running backs to take the pressure off him. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. There's no drama behind Kareem Hunt anymore this season and all of his allegations and stuff. So he definitely has two players that can come in and take the ball and take the pressure off of him, which we definitely see coming from the new head football coach, they're going to use the running backs to do exactly that. That's what they did with Kirk Cousins. And, a lot of people like to just talk Kirk Cousins, but there's been seasons in fantasy football where Kirk Cousins is actually a pretty good starter from a week-to-week basis. All right. So Baker Mayfield, he's naturally just a gifted athletic player. I think he's just trying to find his spot and calm down and his knowledge of the game inside of the NFL league itself. It's definitely not a talent problem with him. I think this is by far the best quarterback that the Browns have had in decades. So it should kind of come around a little bit more for Baker Mayfield this year. If he can drop those turnovers and secure the ball more, especially with those 21 interceptions, we definitely see that being a positive, right? But let's not forget, he also had 3 rushing touchdowns last season. So if he can get that same amount of numbers or even another one, that definitely helps in fantasy football. And especially with the 22 touchdowns that he had last year, we see a couple more touchdowns going to Odell Beckham Jr., and then if he can get the same on the rushing, we could definitely see Baker Mayfield put up over 30 touchdowns this year. All right, so like I was talking a little bit earlier, the addition of Stefanski, they're coming from the Vikings, that's just kind of the system they run. They definitely want to use the running backs. They're going to rush the ball a lot, but they want to open it up downfield, and they want to use that play action to open up those receivers. And that should work really well with Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. So hopefully we see a good connection here with Stefanski and Baker Mayfield. He should be in a better offense and a better situation this year, all right? So, hey, right now we're it's not too high. I definitely wouldn't draft him as your starter. It's kind of a, throw it on a whim at the end of the draft if you want to take that second quarterback. Yeah, so we see him finishing actually kind of around Jimmy Garoppolo last season with San Francisco 49ers. Last year Jimmy Garoppolo finished 14th overall as quarterback. That's kind of about the same place we see Baker Mayfield. So it's definitely an uptick in Baker Mayfield compared to last season. We think that he's worth drafting at the end, especially if you're one of those late. You could definitely take a flyer on him, possibly draft another quarterback if you're going to take 2 late quarterbacks to see which one pans out better. We don't see any huge season or uptick in Baker Mayfield to become like a top 5 quarterback, but he definitely should be playable this season, at least on week-to-week or buys. Our expectation this year is actually for him to jump from quarterback 20 to possibly in that 10 to 12 range. So if you're in a 12 team or even deeper, Baker Mayfield might actually be somebody that you could look at later on. But all right, guys, hey, this is Aaron again. Thanks for watching the video. That's what we got on Baker Mayfield this year. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, and thanks for watching. We'll see you later.